No fucking way. Rocky Mountain noises. Oh, damn. Oh, Mitch.
At the beginning of the movie, we land in Bighorn Ridge, Montana, the kind of small town where everybody supposedly knows everybody else's business. We're introduced first to Ellen Cole, an elderly woman going through her weekly routine, refilling a prescription at the pharmacy, then grabbing a couple boxes of beer from the convenience store next door. Nothing about this moment screams danger. That's exactly the point. Remember her face, because we're coming back to it in a very different light before long. Just outside that same store, we meet our second lead, Abigail Cochran, a young woman caught mid-shoplift, chocolate bars and beef jerky shoved under her jacket. The man who catches her isn't some random clerk, it's Sheriff Winston himself. And here's the detail that makes this whole scene hit differently. Her alcoholic father just died. She has no other family, no money, nowhere to sleep tonight. She wasn't stealing for fun. She was stealing to survive long enough to get out of this town for good. For reasons we don't fully understand yet, Winston lets her go with nothing more than a warning, then orders his deputy, Henry Dhar, to drive her straight to the town line. Henry tries to make conversation on the way. Abigail shuts him down completely. Eventually, he drops her near a gas station and leaves her to fend for herself. This is where the story throws its first real gut punch. Two men, Kyle and Duane, spot Abigail alone, trying to hitch a ride, and decide she's exactly the kind of easy target they're looking for. They corner her. She says no. They don't listen. And just when this moment is about to turn genuinely dangerous, somebody steps in that absolutely nobody, including us, is expecting. Ellen. She doesn't shout. She doesn't threaten. She just walks over, and within seconds, both grown men are flat on the ground. Abigail stands there frozen, staring at a woman who just took down two attackers like it cost her nothing. Consider this your first real clue. Ellen Cole is not who she appears to be. Hang on to that thought. As they drive off together, Ellen learns Abigail's plan: get to Mexico, then eventually make her way to Machu Picchu. Ellen, almost offhandedly, corrects her. Machu Picchu is actually in Peru, not Mexico. It's a tiny, throwaway moment, but it tells you everything about these two women. One of them is running blindly toward a dream she barely understands. The other has clearly already seen more of the world than she's willing to admit. Instead of dropping Abigail at the highway and driving off, Ellen makes a choice that changes the entire direction of this story. She brings her home. Just for one night, she says, a hot meal, a real bed, and then Abigail can go wherever she wants. Abigail hesitates, but hunger and exhaustion win out. Over dinner that night, both women let their guard down for the first time. Ellen reveals she actually knew Abigail's father. He used to help her around the ranch after she lost her own husband. Abigail, in turn, explains what really happened to him. After a developer named Duke brought construction crews into town to build a dam, the creek her father loved more than almost anything got wiped out completely. He started drinking heavily after that, and one night, he wandered out to the dam site alone and drowned. The movie presents this as a tragic accident. Hold on to that word, because accident is about to become the single most suspicious word in this entire story. Abigail admits she's exhausted by this town and just wants to disappear into the world. Ellen doesn't argue with her. She simply says traveling can open your mind, but everyone still needs somewhere to call home. Then, to cut the heaviness of the moment, she jokes that the two of them are basically orphans now. For the first time in the movie, we watch Abigail actually laugh. The next day, the movie finally introduces its real villain. Richard Duke rolls up to Ellen's ranch in a limousine, his enforcer Mitch Clay riding shotgun. He wants her land for a luxury resort project, and he's come prepared with an offer most people wouldn't turn down. A massive payout, her pick of any property in his portfolio, even a lifetime VIP membership thrown in. Ellen doesn't hesitate for a second. As long as she's still breathing, her land isn't for sale, and that's final. Duke storms back to his car furious, and the second the door shuts behind him, he gives Mitch a much darker order. Get her off that property, whatever it takes. That night, with no idea how close the danger already is, Ellen quietly packs Abigail a bag of supplies for the road. And oddly enough, tucks in a hunting knife, just in case. It's a strange gift for someone about to hop on a bus, unless you already suspect this town isn't finished being dangerous. It isn't. That same night, Kyle and Duane, the same two men from the gas station, both on Duke's payroll, break into Ellen's house to fake a fatal accident, tampering with the staircase. But Ellen wakes up. She catches Duane mid-sabotage and takes him down using nothing more than the oxygen tank she never goes anywhere without. Meanwhile, Abigail runs straight into Kyle, who chases her through the house, until she stumbles onto a gun hidden in a cabinet and shoots him in the shoulder in pure self-defense. Kyle flees. Abigail is left shaking, horrified by what she just did. Ellen calmly tells her to stay quiet about it. If it ever comes down to it, she'll take the blame herself. And here's where the injustice really kicks in. The next morning, when the police finally show up, you'd expect them to investigate an armed break-in. Instead, Sheriff Winston brings up Ellen's earlier fight with Kyle and Duane back at the gas station, and his officers just happened to discover 12 marijuana plants in her barn, 3 times Montana's legal limit of 4 before it becomes a felony charge. 2 armed men broke into her home in the dead of night with clear intent to hurt her, and somehow, she's the one who ends up in handcuffs. Deputy Henry looks physically sick about it. He arrests her anyway. With Ellen gone, Abigail stays behind at the ranch and stumbles onto something that reframes everything we thought we knew about this story. Hidden beneath the basement is a secret room packed with weapons, a stack of passports under completely different names, and old photographs of Ellen in military uniform. Whoever this woman really is, or was, harmless old lady, clearly doesn't even begin to cover it. At the police station, a small, almost comic moment cuts through the tension. An officer compliments Ellen's tiger tattoo and shows off his own ink in return. But the levity doesn't last long. Duane, sporting a freshly broken nose, gets bailed out almost instantly, while Ellen sits locked in a cell. When she demands protection for her house, Winston flatly refuses. She accuses him outright of working for Duke. He doesn't even bother denying it. He just tells her no. Shortly after, Kyle and Duane are shown loading up cans of gasoline. Their plan is simple: burn Ellen's house to the ground while she's locked up and defenseless. Back at the station, a visibly conflicted Henry brings Ellen her oxygen tank and finds her collapsed on the floor of her cell. He rushes in to help, which is exactly the mistake she was counting on. She disarms him, locks him inside his own holding cell, and calmly walks toward the exit, taking down 2 more officers along the way, including turning a taser back on the officer trying to use it against her. Within minutes, the woman this entire department underestimated has simply walked out the front door. She races home, hands Abigail the keys to the truck, and tells her to leave before the police arrive. Abigail refuses to abandon her. Moments later, police surround the property. Ellen doesn't run or hide. She steps onto the porch and waits. When Winston points his gun at her, she disarms him in seconds flat, dropping him in front of his entire team, a humiliation he's not going to forgive. Furious, he calls for heavier firepower. Henry, terrified of where this is heading, begs Winston not to escalate, since Abigail is still inside the house. He walks in alone, unarmed, hoping to talk her out peacefully. She won't budge. She's convinced the police are there to kill Ellen, not arrest her. That's when she finally shows Henry something she's been sitting on: a hand-drawn map connecting a disturbing pattern of accidents across several nearby ranches. One burned down and got written off as a random brush fire. Another lost its entire herd to botulism, a disease that has no business showing up in that part of the country, and shortly after, that rancher took his own life. Henry initially dismisses it as coincidence, until Abigail drops the detail that changes everything. The men who supposedly found her father's body at the dam weren't police at all. They worked for Duke. Suddenly, accidental drowning doesn't sound like an accident anymore. Outside, Mitch arrives with a full team of armed men. Winston, clinging to whatever conscience he has left, asks for a few extra minutes to get Abigail out safely. Mitch gives him 3. Winston radios Henry, demanding he bring her out immediately. Henry refuses, demanding to know why Duke's private mercenaries are even on scene. Winston, unwilling to stand up to the man clearly pulling his strings, reluctantly gives the order to move in any way. Inside the house, realizing exactly what's coming, Ellen makes a brutal call. She knocks Henry out cold, deciding he's a bigger liability awake than unconscious. She and Abigail drag him into the hidden room beneath the basement, tie him up to keep him safely out of the crossfire, and lock the door. Outside, more of Mitch's men are pulling up, and these aren't local thugs anymore. These are trained, professional mercenaries. Ellen starts rigging the entire house with traps, and this is exactly the moment the whole movie has been quietly building toward. Back at the station, a background check on Ellen turns up almost nothing before 1999, the year she first settled in Bighorn Ridge. But once her tattoo gets run through federal records, the FBI sends back an answer nobody in that building is ready for. Ellen Cole is a former KGB operative. Her old codename? Sword and Shield. Translation: the sweet old lady down the road spent years as a state-trained, professional killer. Now the real war begins. As mercenaries close in from every direction, Duane stumbles onto a wall of shooting targets inside the house. Every single one hit dead center. He immediately understands exactly what they're dealing with, and he runs, abandoning the rest of the team to whatever's coming for them. The men left behind try ramming a car straight through the front of the house, but Ellen shoots out the tire before it ever gets close. Her traps start claiming victims one by one around the property, and when Kyle finally forces the front door open, one of those traps launches him clean off the porch. Once the mercenaries make it inside, Ellen essentially disappears into the shadows of her own home. Moving room to room in near silence, she takes them down one at a time with terrifying precision. A single shot for every man, often turning their own weapons back on them. Down in the hidden room, Abigail is fighting to force the door open when a mercenary outside hears the noise and comes to investigate. In the scramble, she manages to cut Henry loose from his restraints right as the attacker breaks through, and when Henry gets overpowered in the struggle, Abigail steps in and knocks the man out cold with a baseball bat. But the fight is finally catching up with Ellen. Her lung condition, the reason she's never far from that oxygen tank, starts working against her mid-battle. The second she reaches for it, Mitch spots the opening and opens fire. She's hit. She fires back, but Mitch ducks behind a body until her gun runs dry. Cornered, unarmed, and out of options, Ellen finally comes face to face with the man who spent this entire movie hunting her. Mitch actually seems impressed, telling her that whoever trained her clearly built a weapon instead of a person, right before slamming her to the ground and preparing to finish things. He even asks if she has any final request. Without so much as a flinch, Ellen dares him to put the next bullet through her skull. That's the exact second Henry reappears, gun raised, ending the standoff before Mitch can pull the trigger. With Mitch finally tied up, the three of them press him for answers. Why does Duke suddenly need Ellen dead right now, when the county was already scheduled to seize her land within the year anyway? Under pressure, Mitch finally cracks. Duke is buried in debt to extremely dangerous people, and if his resort isn't finished by next summer, he's finished too, permanently. That's why he can't afford to wait any longer. As Ellen's condition worsens and Abigail rushes to help her, nobody notices Mitch quietly palming a wine opener that had fallen to the floor earlier. The moment Abigail steps away to tend to Ellen, Mitch goads Henry, needling him about being left to die earlier that night by his own sheriff. Henry, furious, gets too close, and Mitch strikes, overpowering him and setting the entire house ablaze before making a run for the door. His men surround the property and open fire to make sure nobody escapes, but in the smoke and confusion, Henry manages to break loose and reunites with Ellen and Abigail. The three of them retreat into the hidden room one final time, grab whatever supplies they can carry, and vanish through a hidden escape tunnel. By the time Mitch's men realize the house is empty, it's already too late. The trio is safely gone, watching from the tree line as everything they just survived goes up in flames. For Ellen, this isn't just a building collapsing. It's the second real home she's ever had in her entire life, gone in a single night. The next morning, while Duke's men sift through the ashes searching for bodies that were never there, Ellen leads Abigail and Henry to a truck she'd stashed away in the forest ahead of time. As they drive, she finally opens up about who she really is. As a little girl living on the streets, she was picked up and trained by the KGB to become exactly the weapon she just proved herself to be. Years later, she fell in love, got married, and built the one thing she'd never had growing up. An actual home. Now that home is gone too, and for the first time in the entire movie, we see just how much that loss costs her. They all know that beating Duke legally means nothing without solid proof, so they head to Abigail's father's old trailer, betting he might have hidden something before he died. And he did. Tucked away among his belongings, they find documents directly linking Duke's resort project to the string of ruined ranches across the county. He wasn't paranoid. He was right the entire time. At the same moment, Duke gets a phone call that visibly rattles him. The Russian investors bankrolling his empire want their paperwork signed, in person, immediately. His entire operation is collapsing in real time. Out in the woods, everything finally catches up with Abigail. She breaks down completely, admitting she spent years embarrassed by her father, resentful of his drinking, ashamed of who he'd become, never once suspecting he might have actually stumbled onto the truth. Now she knows, he wasn't losing his mind. He was murdered for getting too close. Henry, meanwhile, tracks down Sheriff Winston to deliver one last warning. State police are already on their way to arrest him. That night, Duke learns Ellen survived the fire right around the same moment his estate's lights start going dark, one by one, along with his guards. Ellen moves through the property like a ghost, and by the time anyone understands what's happening, most of his men are already down. A terrified Duane shoves Duke into a closet with a gun and stands watch outside, bracing for the inevitable. While that's unfolding, Abigail is elsewhere entirely, planting explosives at the very dam that killed her father. That's when Kyle finds her, and drops the movie's darkest reveal yet. He's the one who actually murdered her father. He beats her while bragging about it, completely convinced he's about to finish what he started. What he doesn't count on is the hunting knife Ellen gave her all those nights ago. Abigail drives it into his stomach, leaving him for dead at the exact site where he took her father's life. If this movie has one moment of pure poetic justice, this is it. Back at the estate, every guard is down. Someone finally approaches the closet, and a panicking Duke empties his entire gun straight through the door. When Ellen calmly opens it, completely unharmed, Duke assumes his death has finally arrived. Instead, she delivers a line that flips the whole scene on its head. She's not there for him. She's there for Mitch. Mitch, right on cue, is exactly who shows up next. Ellen shoots him in the hand to disarm him and makes it painfully clear this is personal. He burned down her home, and now he's going to answer for it directly. Mitch demands a fair fight, and for a moment, he actually gets the upper hand, until Ellen jams a thumb into his eye and turns his own weapon back on him, finishing him for good. With Mitch gone, Ellen marches Duke out to the dam herself. She signals Abigail, and seconds later, the explosives detonate, tearing apart the exact structure that destroyed a creek, a family, and an entire community's trust in one blast. As Duke screams and curses at her, one of the Russian creditors finally arrives to collect what he's owed. The second he lays eyes on Ellen, his whole demeanor shifts. He clearly knows exactly who she used to be, and for the first time, real fear crosses his face. She responds to him fluently in Russian. Duke, understanding none of it, actually smiles, assuming his contact has finally arrived to eliminate his problem. What he doesn't realize is that he is the problem being eliminated. Ellen lets them lead him away, fully aware of exactly what that unpaid debt is about to cost him. Sometime later, Abigail reads a newspaper headline confirming that Duke is still missing following the massacre at his estate. No body, no explanation, no rescue on the way. Henry, now the town's new sheriff, personally delivers Ellen's prescription refill, a quiet, satisfying contrast to everything Winston used to be. Before Abigail finally leaves town for good, she and Henry share one last warm goodbye. In the final scene, Ellen and Abigail load up Abigail's father's old trailer and hit the road together, not as a stranger and a runaway anymore, but as something much closer to family. Their destination? Machu Picchu, exactly like Abigail always dreamed. Except this time, she isn't running away from her life. She's finally running toward one. Okay, but can we talk about that ending for a second? A sweet old lady who turns out to be an actual, real-deal KGB-trained assassin, defending a girl who isn't even her family, burning her own house down, and single-handedly wiping out a private mercenary army? That is the kind of story that deserves way more attention than it's currently getting. Here's the honest truth. Breaking a movie down like this takes hours of watching, rewatching, note-taking, and writing to get it right for you. And the only reason this channel gets to keep doing that is because people actually stick around to watch it. So if you made it all the way to this point in the video, you clearly enjoyed it enough to stay, which means the only thing standing between you and hitting that subscribe button right now is, well, I'm not going to guilt trip you into it. Okay, that was a lie. A little bit, and while you're at it, drop a comment and tell me what hit you the hardest. Was it Ellen daring Mitch to shoot her in the head? Abigail finally standing up for the father she spent years being embarrassed by? Or Duke getting handed over to people even more terrifying than he is? See you in the next one.